156 hits. The incredible story of Zinoviy Kolobanov's tank battle. Hey folks, subscribe to our channel and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's dive into the epic story of Zinoviy Kolobanov and figure out what really happened in that legendary tank battle. Picture this. It's the summer of 1941, and the world is engulfed in the chaos of World War II. Smoke fills the air, and the Soviet Union is fighting for its survival against the relentless advance of Nazi Germany. In the midst of this turmoil, a single Soviet tank, a KV-1 commanded by Senior Lieutenant Zinoviy Kolobanov, takes on a battle that would go down in history as one of the most jaw-dropping moments of the war. On the 20th of August, 1941, near the Vojkovitsy State Farm in the Leningrad region, Kolobanov's crew destroys 22 German tanks. And here's the kicker. Their tank, according to legend, takes 156 hits from enemy shells and keeps on fighting. But could this really have happened? 156 hits sounds almost too wild to be true. Is it fact, or has the fog of war turned it into a larger-than-life tale? This number has sparked heated debates among historians, military buffs, and reenactors. Some call it an unparalleled feat of heroism. Others question whether the details hold up. Let's break it down and explore what went down that day, why this battle became a legend, and how it fits into the bigger picture of World War II. I'll take you through Kolobanov's life, the KV-1 tank, the economic challenges of Soviet tank production, and why this story still resonates today. Buckle up for a deep dive into a moment that defines courage under fire. Who was Zinoviy Kolobanov? Zinoviy Grigorievich Kolobanov was born on the 25th of December, 1910, in a small village called Arafino, in what's now Russia's Nizhny Novgorod region. Life wasn't easy for young Zinoviy. At 10 years old, he lost his father, who died in the Russian Civil War, leaving his mother to raise him and his two brothers alone. That tough upbringing shaped Kolobanov into a resilient and determined man. As a teenager, he enrolled in a military academy, where he stood out as a disciplined and talented cadet. By the time World War II broke out, Kolobanov was no rookie. He'd already fought in the Soviet-Finnish War of 1939 to 1940, where he survived being trapped in a burning tank 3 times, each time climbing back into the fight. In July 1941, Kolobanov was called up from the reserves and sent to the Northern Front, assigned to the 1st Tank Division. There, he was given command of a company of heavy KV-1 tanks. These beasts, named after Soviet leader Kliment Voroshilov, were the pride of Soviet engineering, with armor so thick most German guns couldn't punch through it. But they weren't perfect. More on that later. Kolobanov wasn't just a commander. He was a tactician who knew how to read the battlefield like a chessboard. A tank crew is more than a family, he once said. It's a single organism where everyone knows their role. That teamwork would prove crucial in the battle that made him a legend. Summer of 1941, the war at its darkest. The summer of 1941 was a brutal time for the Soviet Union. On the 22nd of June, Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion that caught the Red Army off guard. German tanks, including the Panzer III and Panzer IV, rolled through Soviet territory, capturing huge swaths of land. The Baltic states were all but lost. Tallinn was on the brink of falling, and Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was in the crosshairs. The Germans wanted to seize Leningrad, a city that wasn't just a symbol of Soviet power, but also a key industrial hub, home to the Kirov plant, which churned out KV-1 tanks. The situation was dire. Soviet forces were taking heavy losses, retreating under the pressure of Germany's blitzkrieg tactics. Factories were being evacuated eastward, civilians were fleeing, and every day brought new challenges. The Kirov plant kept producing tanks despite constant bombing, a testament to the grit of its workers. In this chaos, the Red Army had to make do with whatever they had to slow the German advance. Enter Zinoviy Kolobanov. On the 19th of August, 1941, he received an order from Major General Viktor Baranov, commander of the 1st Tank Division. Block 3 roads leading to Krasnogvardisk, now Gachina, from Luga, Volosovo, and Kingisepp. It was a tall order. Kolobanov's company had just 5 KV-1 tanks to face off against 2 German tank divisions, totaling about 200 vehicles. Most commanders would have seen this as a suicide mission, but Kolobanov saw it as a challenge. His orders were clear: stand your ground. The Battle of Vojkovice, a masterclass in tactics. On the 19th of August, Kolobanov scouted the terrain himself to pick the perfect spots for his 5 tanks. They had to hold a 7-kilometer stretch of front, an insane task for such a small force. But Kolobanov was no ordinary commander. He chose a spot near the Vojkovice State Farm, where swampy ground would limit the Germans' ability to maneuver. A single road created a natural choke point, perfect for an ambush. Kolobanov positioned his KV-1, number 864, in a grove by the swamp, camouflaged to blend into the trees. His crew was a tight-knit team. Kolobanov as commander, Senior Sergeant Andrei Yusov on the gun, Senior Sergeant Nikolai Nikiforov driving, Private Nikolai Rodnikov as the junior driver, and Senior Sergeant Pavel Koselkov as the radio operator and gunner. Each man was a pro, ready to execute Kolobanov's plan to the letter. At dawn on the 20th of August, a German tank column rolled into view. 22 tanks, mostly Czech-made Panzer 35 T models. Kolobanov waited until the lead tanks reached a lone birch tree he'd marked as his firing point. Yusov's first shots were dead on, setting the 2 lead tanks ablaze. Then they targeted the rear tanks, trapping the column in a kill zone. The Germans, unable to spot the hidden KV-1, fired wildly, mistaking haystacks for Soviet tanks. But Kolobanov's crew kept cool, picking off one tank after another. In 90 minutes, they destroyed 22 tanks, using up nearly 100 armor-piercing shells. The entire company of 5 KV-1s took out 43 enemy tanks, plus an artillery battery, a car, and up to 2 companies of infantry. The Germans hit back hard, pounding Kolobanov's tank with everything they had. According to some accounts, the KV-1 took anywhere from 135 to 156 hits. Shells damaged the machine gun, smashed the commander's optics, and jammed the turret. But the crew kept fighting, swiveling the tank's hull to aim the gun. It was a display of sheer guts and ingenuity. 156 hits, fact or legend? Here's the million-dollar question. Did Kolobanov's tank really take 156 hits? This number, which sounds like something out of Hollywood blockbuster, first popped up in post-war accounts and has been debated ever since. Official records from the 1st Red Banner Tank Division, like combat reports and war diaries, don't mention specific damage to Kolobanov's tank. They only note that after running out of ammo, his tank withdrew to Maly Peretsi and Gachina for refueling. The earliest mention of damage comes from 1942 in an article by Brigade Commissar Kirill Kulik in the Soviet magazine Star. Kulik wrote that the tank took 135 hits but didn't have a single penetration. In 1972, journalist V. Blagochinov echoed this number in a Komsomolskaya Pravda article. But by 1978, in a book called Yeshik Calls by Semenov, the number jumped to 147. In 1987, another article, this one by Lysakin and based on an interview with Kolobanov himself, claimed 156 hits. In 2021, the governor of Leningrad Oblast, Alexander Drozdrenko, mentioned at least 100 to 150 hits, and the director of a museum named after Kolobanov stuck with the 156 figure. So what's going on here? Why the discrepancies? It's possible that reports got muddled. Combat logs mention damage to other tanks in Kolobanov's company, like Lieutenant Sergeyev's, which lost its machine gun mount, or Lastochkin's, which was sent for repairs. Some of that damage might have been mistakenly attributed to Kolobanov's tank. Plus, in the heat of battle, counting every dent and scratch was impossible. Crews could only guesstimate, and post-war writers, eager to highlight Soviet heroism, might have inflated the numbers. Even if 156 is an exaggeration, the fact that Kolobanov's tank took a beating and stayed in the fight speaks volumes about the KV-1's armor. At up to 90 millimeters thick, it was a fortress on tracks, shrugging off most German 37 and 50 millimeter guns. Even 75 millimeter anti-tank guns struggled to penetrate it at long range. That kind of durability made the KV-1 a game-changer in 1941. The KV-1 tank, a beast with flaws. To understand how Kolobanov's tank survived such a pounding, let's take a closer look at the KV-1. Designed in 1939 at Leningrad's Kirov plant, this heavy tank was built to smash through fortified lines. Its armor, up to 90 millimeters thick in some models, earned it the nickname Russian Colossus among German troops. For comparison, the German Panzer III had just 30 millimeters of armor, and the Panzer IV topped out at 50. But the KV-1 wasn't perfect. Its 76 millimeter gun, the L-11, later upgraded to the F-32 or ZS-5, wasn't powerful enough to take on later German tanks like the Tiger or Panther. Weighing 47 tons, it was slow and clunky, with a finicky transmission copied from an American design. Its narrow tracks made it a nightmare to maneuver in swamps or mud. Still, in 1941, it was a terror on the battlefield. Building a KV-1 wasn't cheap. Each one cost about 650,000 rubles in 1941, roughly $2 million in today's money. That was double the cost of a T-34, the Soviet Union's workhorse tank. In 1941, the Kirov plant aimed to produce 1,200 tanks, but managed only about 500 due to the war and the factory's evacuation to Chelyabinsk, nicknamed Tankograd. Despite the chaos, Leningrad's workers kept the assembly lines running, even under siege, producing 70 KV-1s in November and December alone. Those tanks, including Kolobanov's, were critical to holding the line at Leningrad. The economic side. Soviet tank production in crisis. To appreciate Kolobanov's feat, you need to know the economic backdrop. In 1941, the Soviet economy was on its knees. The German invasion wiped out about 60% of the USSR's industrial base, with Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states falling to the enemy. Tank production became a top priority, but it faced huge hurdles: shortages of steel, skilled workers, fuel, and power. The Kirov plant was a lifeline. In 1940, it built 139 KV-1s and 104 KV-2s. In the first half of 1941, it churned out 393 tanks. After the plant moved to Chelyabinsk, production hit snags. There wasn't enough equipment to cast turrets. So many tanks used pre-evacuation stock from Leningrad. Each KV-1 required 20 tons of steel and a 600 horsepower V2 engine, making it a resource hog. For context, a German Panzer IV cost about 116,000 Reichsmarks, roughly 500,000 rubles, while a KV-1 was pricier at 650,000 rubles. Despite these challenges, the Soviets pulled off a miracle. By 1942, they produced over 24,000 tanks, including T-34s and KV-1s, while Germany managed only 6,000. This industrial edge helped the Red Army turn the tide. Kolobanov's battle showed what even a handful of well-used KV-1s could do against a larger force. Why was Kolobanov's feat overlooked? Here's the kicker. Despite his heroics, Kolobanov never got the Hero of the Soviet Union title he was nominated for. Instead, he received the Order of the Red Banner, and his gunner, Andrei Yusov, got the Order of Lenin. Why the snub? Some historians think the Leningrad front's brass doubted the battle's details, given the chaotic pace of the war. Verifying every claim was tough when the city was under siege. Others point out that Soviet propaganda in 1941 focused on big operations, not individual heroics, so Kolobanov's story didn't get the spotlight it deserved. His personal story didn't help. On the 15th of September, 1941, while refueling his tank in Pushkin, a German shell exploded nearby, leaving Kolobanov with severe head and spine injuries. He spent most of the war in a hospital, returning to service only after recovery. He never rose above lieutenant colonel, and in 1955, he was transferred from East Germany to Belarus after one of his soldiers defected to the West. In 1958, he was discharged and worked as a quality control foreman in Minsk until his death. It wasn't until after the war that Kolobanov's story gained traction. In 1983, a memorial tank, an IS-2, was set up at Vochkovitsy. Later, a panorama recreated the battle, and in 2006, St. Petersburg named a street after him. Reenactments keep his legacy alive, drawing crowds eager to honor a hero who faced impossible odds. My take: why this story matters. Kolobanov's battle isn't just about tanks. It's about grit, brains, and standing tall when the odds are stacked against you. He and his crew knew they might not make it, but they held their ground, turning a hopeless situation into a stunning victory. That kind of courage is timeless. Whether it was 156 hits or 135, the number doesn't change the core truth. Kolobanov's tank took a beating and kept fighting, saving Leningrad from a German breakthrough. What I love about this story is how it shows the power of preparation and teamwork. Kolobanov didn't just rely on his tank's armor. He outsmarted the enemy, using the terrain to his advantage and keeping his crew focused under fire. It's a lesson for all of us. Plan smart, work together, and don't back down, no matter how tough things get. Whether you're tackling a big project at work or facing a personal challenge, Kolobanov's story is a reminder that you can overcome the odds with the right mindset. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Germany's tank forces in 1941 were well-oiled machines with efficient production lines. A Panzer III cost about 82,000 Reichsmarks, and a Panzer IV ran 116,000, way cheaper than a KV-1's 650,000 rubles. But the Soviets had a secret weapon: sheer output. By 1942, they were cranking out 24,000 tanks a year, dwarfing Germany's 6,000. That scale, combined with tanks like the KV-1, gave the Red Army a fighting chance. The KV-1 was a beast, but it came at a cost. Its 20 tons of steel and complex components strained Soviet factories already stretched thin by the war. Yet the effort paid off. Battles like Kolobanov's proved that a single well-placed KV-1 could disrupt entire enemy divisions, buying time for the Soviets to regroup and counterattack. Kolobanov's legacy, a call to remember. Today, more than 80 years later, the Battle of Vochkovitsy is a symbol of defiance. Kolobanov's name lives on in St. Petersburg's Kolobanov Street, the Vochkovitsy Memorial, and reenactments that bring his story to life. It's a reminder that one person or one tank can make a difference, even in the darkest times. So, what can we take away from this? Kolobanov's story challenges us to be ready, to think strategically, and to stand firm in the face of adversity. Whether you're chasing a dream or tackling a tough task, his example shows what's possible with courage and preparation. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and let me know what inspires you about this story. Zinoviy Kolobanov's battle is more than a footnote in history. It's a testament to human resilience. Whether his tank took 156 hits or 135, the fact remains, he and his crew held the line, stopping a German advance that could have changed the war's course. Their story is a beacon of hope, showing that even in the worst moments, heroes can rise. Let's keep their memory alive. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage and sacrifice from World War II, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think 156 hits is fact or legend? What does Kolobanov's story mean to you? Let's keep the conversation going.